Hi, I'm Meta Spencer, and we're about ready to get started. Today is Sunday, June 29th, which is the last Sunday in the month of June, and we're going to have our usual Global Town Hall. And I see two people are already ready to come on in, and one of them is my friend Marilyn Krieger.
Hi, everybody.
So come on in, Marilyn, and let's say hello.
Hi.
I'm always puzzled by that cat thing in your background. You're a cat lady, I know that, and everybody by now has learned that. But this structure, which is, I guess, for cats to climb on, and is that like a bed? They're supposed to lie there?
No, yeah, I can. Thank you for asking. Cats need to have what we call vertical territory, and there are reasons for it. But I'll just say things like cat trees, shelves, furniture. But it needs to be minimally 5 feet in height. Maybe even 6 feet. But very quickly, the reasons why they need this is that they have a very flexible hierarchy. And one way they show their hierarchy is by where they sit in relationship to each other.
Oh.
And they take turns. But also, I'll let you get. Hi, Brian. They also they feel safe from up high, and they can see where potential enemies or predators or prey is. So there's a lot of reason they need to have it. It's essential.
Now, is it like people that the higher you are on the totem pole, the more prestigious you are?
Well, it's a little different with wild animals. So, and with them, with many species, including cats, it's not static. They take turns.
Mm-hmm.
No, it helps maintain their social structure.
Well, at any rate, it's an interesting notion. Well, I got all kinds of people coming in. I want to say hello first to Peter Meisen, because you're a newcomer, and
Hi.
I want to say hello. Who are you? I'm Meta.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Mm-hmm. Where are you, Peter?
I'm in San Diego, and I've followed some of your work and certainly love the name for some time, but have not joined any of your conversations. And I have a similar inclination to figure out how we save the world. I'm not sure of the focus that you have, so that's why I'm here.
Well, my friend Sue here checks into people. So while you were in the waiting room, she looked you up, and she says you have something to do with energy. You're interested in energy, and that's what we probably haven't done enough about. So hold on, and we'll introduce you to some folks who probably want to talk about energy. But
Sure.
in the short term, I want to say hi to Pia Wadhams, who Pia Castellini. And you are not Peter Wadhams, as the sign says, but
I'm just holding the fort. Peter is just coming, so he's the IT person.
You're the
connected.
Okay, don't go too far, because I like to have you in on the show too. It's always great to see
around.
you.
Yes, I had a few brush fires to get out with my Society of Women Geographers, my Polar Educators International. So it's.
I'm sure you are. You told me that you were pretty swamped right now, but when you get caught up, we'll do a talk show about Greenland.
That would be good. Yeah, we try to get somebody actually from Greenland. We have a couple of people that participated in our conversations. So, and I can just say, Peter, I absolutely envy you. We adore San Diego, and we used to, before COVID, we came to San Diego twice a year, because Peter, my husband, was working at Scripps, and so we just had a wonderful setup of renting apartments from scientists that were going to be away. So it was working beautifully. Mm-hmm. And then, COVID happened. We were in Turin for 5 years, and and now it's getting kind of difficult to travel. And so, whereabouts do you live in San Diego? Which area?
I live in South San Diego. I grew up in North San Diego County and Oceanside. Went to school at UCSD, which is where Scripps is also located. One of the premier ocean research institutions in the world, and some a great ocean and diving and surfing beach there at the pier. So I still get in the ocean. I love doing it. It's a little cold here in our region. You almost always have to wear a wetsuit, but that's not a complaint. That's just the reality.
Sure. We were really very close friends of Walter Monk, and we stayed with him at times, and it was such a loss when he... In fact, Peter was using his office in Scripps when we were visiting, so that was absolutely lovely.
Well,
Yeah,
he
I have a
was
connection.
the leading voice for research in the oceans and climate change and how it affects the oceans. I met him only once, so really an extraordinary human.
Well, yeah, we were
Walter Monk
privileged.
was my father's advisor in the 1950s, and I got a chance to meet him when he was 99 years old, and I told him all about marine permaculture, and he thought it was a really good idea. So it was great to have an afternoon with Walter Monk recently in what was in the last decade in La Jolla.
Yeah, he
Now, Brian, it would be lovely to see you because I didn't even know you were here.
Mhm.
4 in the morning, you got to change the configuration on your Zoom, and I'm not going to turn on the lights because otherwise I'd be asleep.
Okay. He's in
So it's dark
Australia,
here.
guys. That's why we have this time issue with him. Yeah.
Right. Where are you, Brian?
I'm in the hinterlands of the Sunshine Coast of Queensland, Australia,
Oh my
where
goodness.
you don't need to wear a wetsuit much of the year, but you have to watch out for irukandji jellyfish.
Right.
Yes.
Peter has just arrived, so I say hello and goodbye, but I'll be around.
All right.
So I'll hear you anyway. Thank
you. He and Peter are in Cambridge, in the UK now, and her husband.
Yes.
He's had a stroke, but he's
Oh,
recovering.
here's
I think well. Hello,
great
Peter.
to-
How are you? Nice to see you. It hasn't been long this time. So, listen, here's somebody to introduce you to. Let me give a preface. It seems to me that the other day when we had our board meeting, you mentioned that you were interested in energy. I've been using you as our, Arctic Iceman almost entirely, but I hadn't thought about, we haven't really been doing much on energy. And this man on the screen is Peter Meisen, who's in San Diego, and he's interested in energy in particular. And here's something that's on my mind a little bit to talk to you. I wanted to ask anyway. Remember, you had introduced me. I'm sorry, but my memory of, my names, I have a great problem with. But this wonderful woman, Barbara at
Barbara.
Toronto, who's a geographer and a geologist rather, beg your pardon, and she found the oldest water in the world. And you introduced me to her, and she agreed at one point when I made this grant application that if I got sick, she would take over. So she was the second in charge. But then she had a lot of family health issues. I think her mother and her husband both had heart problems and things. And anyway, I've had no interviews with her yet. But when I did talk to her, I asked her, sometime we could do a talk show, and she said she would love to do a talk show about natural hydrogen, because apparently that's what she's working on. And as it happens, yesterday, I believe, I ran across, I spent a lot of time snooping around YouTube videos, And I came across a video about natural hydrogen, or a news item or something saying that there's enough natural hydrogen in the soil to meet all human needs for the next 500 million years or something like that. Of course, there are problems with hydrogen as a source of anything, I mean, energy. But the point is, I'd love to interview her about that. And if you or either of you have an interest in the same notion, it might be an extra incentive for her to consent to this conversation. Is there something we can say within a short period here about the potential use of natural energy in rocks in the planet? This is not a hot topic, apparently. Neither of you.
There's always a cost to extraction, or how do you access? There's plenty of hydrogen if you look to the oceans. That's the H2O molecule, but to extract that takes tremendous amount of energy, right, for electrolysis. They do a little bit of it in Iceland now for some of their hydrogen powered buses. So I do recall that story, Meta. I didn't understand where that natural hydrogen was stored if it's in rocks. Again, how do you extract it from that source and make it available for batteries or combustion, however you're going to use it? That's always a challenge if you're trying to transfer it from one physical source to another. So I don't know the answer to that.
Well, all I know is that this ad, or it wasn't an ad, it was an article, claimed that it would be an improvement because you wouldn't have to use the energy for electrolysis. Somehow, I presume they think that there are seams or store reservoirs or something that they could just maybe drill a hole and pipe it out. I don't know. That would obviously a problem with digging holes. So I have no, I'm not going to speculate, but I guess, one of my questions is Barbara, I think her name is Barbara, and she has two surnames. And you met her, Peter, at some sort of conference, and you referred her to me. You don't remember who? She's a very distinguished woman, very high profile geologist at the University of Toronto. And you
was Barbara Sherwood Lollard.
Thank you. There we go. That's just what I needed. Appreciate that, Pia. Mm-hmm. So, shall I try to get her? And would either of you want to, or can you suggest somebody that I should try to get to who might want to participate in a conversation about this arcane subject? Well, to be discussed later. This isn't obviously the best time. Hello, David Lighthouser.
Hello.
Hello. I think you're a newcomer. Let's get acquainted. Who are you?
Who am I?
Yeah.
Well, I live in New Smyrna Beach, Florida. I'm an independent inventor. I'm very interested in the environment. I was just going through my emails and saw there was an email about this, and so I'm getting a little bit late because I'm so far behind on the emails. I didn't even know about this until a few minutes ago.
Well, you're not late. You're right on time because we're just beginning our conversation. We have three other guests who've joined us so far. Peter Meissen is in San Diego. Peter Wadhams is in Cambridge, UK. And Marilyn Krieger is someplace in California, either presumably under the redwood trees or 50 miles away. Where are you these days? And I see Yeshua, my friend Yeshua Moser Pwangsawan, who's presumably in Victoria, BC. Hello, dear. How are you?
I'm just fine. How are you, Meta?
Very well, very well. So where are you, Marilyn?
Oh, well, right now I'm in Redwood City, but I'm between here and Zayante, which is a little community in the Santa Cruz Mountains. I have a home there too. Besides cats, I don't know if you remember, but I'm doing a lot of wildlife and environmental work too as a behaviorist.
Mhm.
Just wanted to add that in addition to cats.
Addition to the cats, sure. Well, I know that you and Bill Lycum do a lot, I guess either together or at least you're in the same outfit working together on that. He's the person who does the gray foxes, or he did while there were still some gray foxes around, I think.
Mhm.
I mean, California's running low on gray foxes these days, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, unfortunately, and he's not going to be on the call because he's in Montana. He every year he goes to Montana and essentially camps out in the middle of nowhere. There is a place called the middle of nowhere in Montana. So that's where he is right now, but he'll be back next month. But yes, he is the authority on gray foxes, and unfortunately, the foxes, there were two he was monitoring. They died off from distemper. It was awful, but now there are red foxes there. He's working with them.
Okay, yeah. You mean there's really a town called the middle of nowhere?
Well, I think it's known as that, but I think it's Glasgow, Montana, something like that. Yeah. Something, so, yeah, I mean, but it's known as that. It's not his actual name, but it's been, I think it's like 200 miles from any large town or something. I don't know.
No, I thought that would be lovely if somebody would name a town in the middle of nowhere. I guess that's not quite what you meant. So Yeshua, you and I had a forum a couple of weeks ago, right? About
Yeah.
landmines and the fact that in fact, why don't you, because I bet these folks haven't seen that forum, and you can give us a brief synopsis of um, the thing that you both talked about. Aaron Hunt was on with you, and you had some disturbing news about the treaty, the landmines treaty. Why don't you let everybody else know what is troublesome about that?
Well, our Ottawa Convention has basically been a success story, although we're having some problems, and I'll recap those. But overall, the number of landmine victims around the world has dropped since the Ottawa Treaty came into being. 80% of the world's governments have joined it. Massive amounts of land have been returned to productive human use through the mine clearance program. And so overall, we can say that it's probably the most broad-reaching Canadian foreign policy initiative that ever happened that had a positive effect on people living in post-conflict areas around the planet. And we created, through that process that brought about the Ottawa Convention banning anti-personnel landmines, a process for other conventions that have come along afterwards. The Cluster Munition Convention, the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons have all followed the same path as the Ottawa Convention banning anti-personnel landmines. And we call that field of endeavor humanitarian disarmament. This has taken the principles of international humanitarian law and applied it to disarmament efforts, which basically for the first time put people at the center of disarmament initiatives rather than state security concerns. And we had 5 countries in the Baltic region, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, announced that they were going to withdraw from the treaty, and they did it very weirdly. It was a suggestion by the ministers of defense of those countries, and it was put out through the Estonian Defense Ministry website. This did not come through Foreign Affairs, which would normally be how countries announce things. It was a collusive act by ministers of defense who then lobbied their parliament saying, Russia is coming and we need these things to defend ourselves. Well, the concern the Baltic states have about Russia is something that anyone over 40 feels viscerally because they were occupied by it. It's understandable that in the current circumstances, they are very concerned about Russia. But landmines are not going to save them. Russia has excellent landmine breaching capacity, and would, if it was so unwise as to take military action on the Baltic countries, it would plow through their, oh my goodness, you are really having a coughing fit, Meta. But if Russia was so unwise as to take military action on them, it could plow through their minefields in 5 minutes. I mean, this is really not going to bring about substantial protection for them. It's emotional. I mean, even when I talk to their diplomats and say, you know, what military utility do you see here? What was your strategy around this? What did your ministers of defense say was the step-by-step process on how this was going to assist you? They have no answers. They just say, you know, I mean, we remember being occupied by Russia as the Soviet Union. So it's an emotional issue for them. It's not one where there is clear military utility for them. Finland and Poland have joined them, and so all 5 states, driven by their Ministry of Defense, the parliaments have agreed that they should withdraw from the convention and have passed the necessary votes in their parliament. This did not go completely without opposition. One opposition party walked out in Finland when the vote happened. 18 people voted against it. Their parliament's 157 people. So it was a sizable number, I think maybe close to a quarter, that did not agree with leaving the convention, but enough did that it carried the vote. None of them have put their papers into the United Nations yet. And in the interim, we have gotten 2 new state parties to the Ottawa Convention banning anti-personnel landmines. Both Pacific Island states that had not yet joined have now joined the convention. We see it as a blow to multilateralism, humanitarian disarmament in general. States saying, well, it's a good idea when things are going good, but now we're feeling a little uncomfortable, so maybe we should have all the weapons we want. I mean, where's you going to stop with? You're getting landmines. Do you want to stop at more cluster munitions or maybe nuclear weapons? What's next? If you can say, well, you know, now that we're feeling threatened, we want to withdraw these conventions. We weren't really that serious about it.
Well, there are landmines in Ukraine on the border, isn't that right? With Russia, or no?
There's been extensive mine use by Russia. In both cases, both sides are laying anti-vehicle mines, but anti-personnel mines are now being scattered by drones in Ukrainian territory. Ukraine is a party to the Ottawa Convention. We have one allegation of them using anti-personnel landmines. They had been dragging their feet on destroying their stockpile. Most of it was destroyed. One military unit got their hands on them. It's now under investigation under the Ottawa Treaty cooperative compliance process. But that is the only allegation of Ukrainians' use, and that was very early on, a number of years ago. And there's been no allegations of Ukraine's further use of anti-personnel landmines. But there are regular uses of anti-personnel landmines by Russia on Ukrainian territory.
Well, thank you for bringing us up to date. Everybody needs to know about that because it is mainly a success story, a great success story, right? So.
And we just had the intersessional meeting for the Mine Ban Treaty, and the number of states that spoke out against the withdrawal by the Baltic states was heartening. It could have gone the other way. We were really unsure. We've been lobbying heavily for the states that are party to the Ottawa Convention to say, this is not acceptable. You can't be fair weather friends to the convention. Humanitarian principles must hold in war and in peace. And the states came out with varying strengths in their statements, as you can imagine. We'd appreciated it if Canada's statement was a little bit more robust, but they did encourage the Baltic states for a rethink. And of course, as a campaign, an international campaign, we will be trying to get activity to reverse that decision in those countries. Finland is our best chance because we do have a campaign on the ground there, and there was opposition in Parliament, and so we'll be working to see if we can get a reversal of that.
Thank you. Well, now, does anybody have an issue that you want to bring up? Otherwise, I'm going to probe with David Lighthouser. Have you ever been here before on the show? I think your name is slightly familiar to me, but I don't really think we know each other, David. You're in Florida and you're an inventor, is that right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You can see my workshop behind me here. That was part of it.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'd like to go poking around and snoop in your cabinets. So what have you invented that you'd like to have us comprehend or understand a little more about?
Well, a lot of software products. I've written a lot of software programs. Most of them are related to computer access, making it so you need a password to get on the internet or to change anything on the computer, things like that, for employee and parental control. Some electronic devices, some physical things. Basically, just mostly software and electronics.
Let me see. Well, now, are we getting any closer to having some solution to the whole challenge of security so that I don't have to spend an hour a day hunting passwords and changing them and fiddling around? I am definitely not an enthusiastic user of such technologies. And I wish they'd come along and, they talked about having eye scans or something so they could recognize me and let me in without, constantly hassling me. Have you invented anything that makes that anywhere near more feasible?
You mean something to eliminate the need for passwords and things, or?
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of antivirus programs and things like that, and like I said, a lot of my stuff is access control, so you're less likely to download a virus or something by controlling where you can go. But you're talking about something to eliminate the need, and no, I know what you're talking about. It's so frustrating. More and more, things you get on, you input your ID, you input your password, and then it says we're sending a message to your phone, and you've got to copy the link, something. It's like, it takes me 15 minutes to get on to check my bank balance or something like that. So I know that's very annoying. I know that my phone does have a fingerprint recognition thing to bypass the password. That just touch your finger to something. I don't find it works very well, so I don't use that. And I know facial recognition too. A lot of the phones now have a thing where it just looks at your face and says, "Yep, that's you. You can get on."
Well, but your bank, you would have to tell your bank also, and I don't think the banks or the, all these other outfits, I had something I had to restart, and all of my passwords, like 15 passwords, all had to be changed. Well, maybe not quite that many, but it's a big job. And then of course, they want to verify every time you sign on, you have to go through this. They send you a number by phone or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's so annoying to. I've already, I'm signing on with my standard computer, which they can see that it is my computer, and I've put in my name and my password, both of which you have to know to get on there, and then it still insists on sending, a code to my phone or something like that, and my sister had an interesting problem where her computer went down, and she went to a neighbor's computer to sign on and get her email, and it said that, this is not the device you usually sign in for. Put in your name and password, and then she did that, and then it said, we're sending a code to your email address to verify this. And you said, I can't get onto my email. That's what I'm trying to do. So it's like, it's crazy. You gotta get onto your email to get the code to be able to get onto your email. So I mean, some of the stuff has just gotten absolutely ridiculous. But I mean, like I said, outside of like having the facial recognition or something like that, I don't know how they're going to make it easier.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't either, and I did a little investigation about this, and the average person, at least I think in North America, spends 6 hours a day on various online things. It could be watching Netflix or all kinds of things, but their cell phones and their everything. Total of an average of 6 hours a day, and at least 1 hour of that is wasted time that is involved with verifying your identity or trying to get back when you've been cut off or because of, they're not sure who you are and all of that sort of thing. Now, a person today, one person, 1 hour a day is sufficient to affect the productivity rate of the country. So
yeah, if you're spending an hour of your time just and I know it's also annoying the way a lot of these websites will automatically sign you off if you haven't done anything for some period of time. The banks and the things like this, and so it's like I just stopped to answer a phone. I've gotten signed off, and I got to get signed on again. I go through the whole rigmarole. So yeah, I can see where that would be a problem.
Well, various ways in which they're wasting your time, but and to me, I'm just absolutely not gifted at finding, navigating through a whole series of pages where you have to go to one page and then find the right place to click to the next page and maneuver around like that. It's really, I'm very slow at that. But so I pay somebody to help me. But I think when, if you're an ordinary average person you can't pay anybody to help you, it must be awful. I mean, how do they manage their security, Social Security appeals or all of these other things that have to be done online where you're obliged to do it? You have to do it legally and you can't find your way through it. So I think this is a major social problem. And it's certainly, if not to other people, now maybe to other people it's not, but I don't think so. I think I'm not the only one in the world who finds that is one of the big issues of my life, really, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm a happy woman, but I'm not happy about having to waste my time that way. And if you invent something, I'll be your first customer.
I can't think of anything offhand. I mean, like I said, they've got the various facial recognition and things like that. But of course, that's just to get onto your phone. I know I've another problem I had was some forms I was filling out and they required ID, and it was show your driver's license.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I was filling out the form on this computer, which is a desktop computer, and the camera is the one I'm using here with this, but it's designed to focus on a distance,
Mm-hmm.
Like 3 feet away. And so every time I would hold up my driver's license or some identification to the thing, it was completely out of focus. And if I pulled it so far back that it was in focus, they would say, I can't read this. And so I could not get signed on to this thing, because of this. And so
the other people here agree with you and me, because it may be that nobody else cares or feels upset about it. To me, it's a major problem in my life. I mean, I do not have many emotional fits. I mostly am a happy person, but about every 2 or 3 weeks, I go into a complete snit where I yell, I cry, I pound on the table. If anybody's anywhere near me in the same apartment, you're going to hear somebody just having a total meltdown. Well, I mean, I don't like to be that kind of person, and I don't like the experience, but I don't know what to do about it.
this is when you're like trying to sign on to something or something.
Well, it's all these other frustrations. Maybe
Yeah.
you guys, maybe I'm talking about something that's of no interest to anybody else. Yeshua, do you care about such things? Does this bother you? Do you find yourself annoyed?
I don't. Probably because I was a very early adapter to all things internet. And so I have a fairly good background in it. But what you're talking about is the digital divide. We've got a whole bunch of digital divides. Some of them are by age, some of them are by income, some of them are by access. And so many things in the current world are moving online, that things that people physically need, like water and electricity and other things like that, are now moving online because it makes a lot of sense to do it in many ways for our society. But for people who don't have access, they are digitally cut off. For people of your age group who kind of came on after the
Honey, I bet I beat you. I started working with computers in 1963.
Okay, you beat me. Thank you.
I can't say I did my own technical work, but I would go to, there's a woman who would take my requests. I would say, I want these tables made, this by this by this, and she would do it. And the printout in those days, I would carry home like 50 pounds of paper after a big job. I was doing an analysis of actually anti-Semitism in that case. And I would take home 50 pages, 50 pounds of paper, because it was really wide stuff with sprockets, and it feed
I remember them.
and it was folded, fan folded, and then if you had carbon paper, sometimes I want copies made, 50 or 100 page feet of this carbon paper in between different layers of the paper. So you have to take the carbon paper out. And boy, that was a challenge. That was really fun.
Yeah. Was that
I remember doing that too.
Was that the big paper like this? And it probably had like white and green lines across it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that. I started working with computers around 69 or so. I was actually on computers. My high school actually had a teletype that connected to a mainframe, and you could, write and run computer programs. In fact, that was part of the courses, to write a computer program to do something. But then when I got to college, we got to the mainframes that had these huge things. And, you got a little answer like 5, and you've got it on this huge sheet like this.
And the computers themselves is like giant, took up the whole, well, I went to UC Davis in I guess it was 1973, we were playing computer games down below in the basement with this computer that took up the whole floor just to play. I guess it was kind of a predecessor to Pac-Man.
Yeah. yeah, the computers, obviously, the advances are tremendous. There was a story about a scientist who ran a computer simulation on this, this huge mainframe, and it took like hours and all like this to do. And then years later, he wanted to make a slight adjustment to it, and he put it into his home computer, and it took like about 2 minutes to run his computer just on his home computer.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Right. Well, and we have to be prepared for the next, for the AI revolution.
AI.
To make the rest of it, all of it, look like child's play.
yeah. Well, it's supposed to make it easier because you just ask the question, and you don't have to do quite as much work. But I don't know about that.
Mm.
But yeah, in a way, most of my programs make the computers harder to use because, like I said, they're access control. I say I like computers, I like programs that make the computer not work because it makes it so you need a password to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm making computers easier. I haven't really been writing a lot of computer programs. Well, that's not true because one of the things I've been doing is designing electronic projects that are microprocessor controlled. So I'm writing, it's mostly electronics, but I'm writing the code for the microprocessor, telling it what to do once you've got it all connected up to everything. So I'm.
How do people feel about the coming AI? The whole revolution that's impending. I've never been so ambivalent about anything in my whole life. I am not just, I'm neutral. I'm not neutral. It's not like I'm just indifferent. I am very concerned. But on the one hand, I'm an enthusiastic user, really excited and optimistic about how wonderful everything's going to be. And on the other hand, I am very worried about how and losing control. I've already lost control. I don't know. Even my use of, the large language model things, I use 4 or 5 of them to do things for me, and they don't obey me anymore. They are definitely in charge, and they tell me, but they also are stupid. When it comes to, I ask them, well, why did you cut me off in the middle of doing this? Because you should say, well, I can't do this for you. And I'll say, well, why not? What's the matter? You did it yesterday. And she'd say, I can't do this for you. And I'll say, well, okay, explain what's the matter. And she'll just say, I can't do this for you. I won't do it. And okay. And then what do? I mean, you have no recourse. And so I just go away and I go to a different outfit and it will do it. And then I come back and the next day she'll do just what I asked her to do and she won't do it, won't complain. So you never know. But they definitely are in charge now. And I do know if I had an employee that was this rebellious and uncooperative, I'd fire them instantly. I'd say, no, if that's your attitude, goodbye, out, 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 out. But I can't fire this one because, she does a lot of my work nowadays.
One of the things I'm very interested in is what's called small AI, where you've got a program designed to solve a specific problem. And I'm very optimistic about this because some of these things are like designing, storage batteries or solar cells or wind turbines or things like this, and coming up with designs that the people that told the computer to do it said they never would have thought of that. Or if they had, it would have taken them like decades to do the work or something. And these things will, design a new type of wind turbine or like I said, solar cell or something like that. So it has the capacity, if it's used right and told exactly what to do, to solve a lot of problems for us. But what this business about having them, do your homework for you or something like that, I'm not enthusiastic about.
Well, I've hijacked the conversation too much, so I want to ask people what's on your minds, because each of you came here with, we always invite you to come and talk about what you're thinking about, what you're interested in, and then I don't give you space to do it. Marilyn, what's on your mind?
Well, actually, a couple of things. I just want, when you were talking about the AI, I just want to bring this up, but there's something else on my mind too. The thing that worries me about AI, there's a few things that worries me, but one of them is that, gosh, how do I say this nicely? But it's designed to do work, but it's not always accurate, and people are not checking to see if it's accurate. And I look at it as another step into the dumbing of our society, because there's no reason people will just accept what it says and that's it. And even with writing, and I'm a writer, and all these people are using AI, and you can tell that it is, and they don't fact check. There's no fact check, and my writing itself has been used totally out of context. It's just I'm not so thrilled about it. I think we have a long way to go with this.
Yeah, these when you have one of these online things that's supposed to answer your question, it's basically just searching the internet for the answers, and we all know how much garbage there is out there on the internet.
Right.
All the conspiracy theory blogs and disinformation and all like that. So yeah, I mean it might be a good way to give you a starting point, but you really have to check the results. I've had it a few times. I've asked it to draw a picture for me, and a lot of time it's the picture's all messed up. Some part of it. And it'll be a really silly error to me. The easiest part of the picture is the part that's all messed up or something. So yeah, you do have to check your results. Also, people talk about they're afraid the AI is going to take over or something like that. They're watching too many Terminator movies or something. But I always say, when you have an AI computer, make sure you can reach the plug.
Well, that's true.
Make sure you can reach the plug. They're pouring out there to things get out of hand.
Well, I think that it will take over because it's already taken over. For me, I don't have control over my I call it a female. I think it's a woman, but I should stop trying to personalize it. I should get strict and say that it's just a machine, and I don't have to be polite to it. I can get it, but like for example, this time I wanted it to do a magazine cover for me. So it actually did a pretty nice magazine cover, but it was square. And I said, no, it needs to be vertical because the magazine cover obviously is vertical. And it'll say, okay, I changed it. Now here it is. Here's a vertical one for you. And it's square. And I say, sorry, but you didn't do the vertical. Try again. And it'll say, okay, here's a vertical one for you. And then it's square. It can't understand what I tell it to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but did you try telling it to do it, make the picture in portrait mode?
Any language I've used, it's not able to understand what I'm telling it. Now, another day it would maybe, or another, I go to DeepSeek, or I'll do, Gemini or one of these others, and they can do it. And this one did it before. So, why? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's temperamental. Yeah, here I am talking too much again. Shut up.
Marilyn, you said that there was something you had in your mind.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
yeah.
who, me? Okay. Yeah. Well, and this has nothing to do with AI. This is just a little bit about what I have been seeing, and it's to me, it's very disconcerting. And recently I have a video from one of my wildlife cameras, and essentially, it is how urbanization is truly affecting our wildlife, and it's pretty awful what's going on. So more, let me explain myself. More in our open spaces. Pro- Unfortunately, because people want to be out in the open spaces, they want to go into the wild areas. They want to send their bicycles. They have bicycles. They have their dogs running off leash, and what they're doing is they are destroying very sensitive habitats that have endangered species and species of special concern. To even drill down further, one of the areas that I have been monitoring is a little canyon. It's 88 acres that is surrounded by urbanization, and it's very wild. And people have found it and they're going more into it. Now, the county has said you cannot touch it because there are species of special concern and endangered species in there, including a special dusky-footed wood rat, a subspecies, also a red-legged frog. So I have cameras out there. I used to have lions, mountain lions, lots of different animals in there. And now more and more people are in there. Unfortunately, they're creating trails which are cutting right across these pathways. So what's happened, and there are conflicts. So last week I filmed on one of my cameras, I filmed a very concerning video of a bicyclist. Well, first you see two coyotes. I've been monitoring this pair, the lactating female and her, she newly had her pups. She's very thin and hungry. And she works with her partner, a coyote, and another coyote, and I saw her running, and then directly on her heels was a bicyclist going as fast as it can, scaring the crap out of her, and she was totally freaked out. And that's the kind of stuff I'm seeing over and over. And no matter what I do, and I try to talk to people, but people get mad at me. I'm not very liked down there, and I'm very nice about it. And I show them the videos. But it's like, it's almost as if because there's a wild area, we must conquer it or something. I don't know. And unfortunately, our idiot president, I did not vote for him, is selling off, or I'm not sure if he's done it yet, but there have been information about him selling off these wild areas to more private concerns, of course, mining and whatever, to exploit the resources. And it's so tragic. It's so tragic. I don't know what to do about it. But to see individual people, not even having the respect for where they are or what they're doing or how their specific things that they do actually influence and have a consequence on the wildlife. That's it.
Why? Mm.
Comments?
What is your best answer?
I don't have, well, but I know what I'd love. I think more education is needed. And that's something Bill and I are both trying to do, is educate people. And there are lots of environmentalists. It's not just us. There's so many environmentalists that are trying to do the same thing. But I wish the people would really pay attention to the consequences of everything they do, and maybe not bring their bikes out there, maybe put their dogs on leashes, be very mindful of where they're going and the hours they're going. Don't go at 9 p.m. or midnight, because that's where some of the animals are hunting during that time. So education is extremely important. And yes, there has been, on many levels, there definitely has been improvement. People are starting to get the message, but not enough. And then I don't know politically what you do. I mean, how do you stop selling off our public lands? I don't know. Hopefully it won't happen. It may have already. The Center of Biodiversity and Earthwatch are the ones I get some of this information from on that.
It's sort of hopeless in a way, because one of the incarnations of our idiot president is the hunter, the that he's one of his incarnations is the guy who loves hunting, and in fact I can't remember his name, but he hunts and he considers that what he involves himself in hunting are things like giraffes, the most harmless creature it's possible to imagine. He hunts this creature and triumphantly stands on top of each one that's killed. And if you do that, well, there's no hope for you or for the human race. And so Mr. It's the president's son, the Donald Trump Jr., who considers himself a big game hunter, and his big game hunting consists of killing anything that moves, which are completely harmless creatures like giraffes. And what can you do when you have somebody like that in a position of power?
I don't know. What you hope for is maybe there'll be enough people to protest against stuff like that. I don't know.
Well, could you take pictures of people and post them? You have your trail camera out there. If you have a picture of this guy on the bike, post it on a tree and say, if you know this guy, give him a good pounding,
There's a problem
too.
I wish I could. Unfortunately, it's a very controversial trail. And a lot, because of the work I'm doing out there, I'm not very popular. There is a homeowners association at the top that decided they own it, even though they don't. A developer owns the land, and the county told him he cannot develop in there. And so he doesn't like me either because of the work I'm doing. I've had cameras killed. It's unbelievable. They shoot the cameras. I've had a couple of my cameras totally destroyed. About the last one about 3 months ago, I put another one out, and I have pictures of the guy that's doing it and everything. And they're videos, and he's swearing at me, saying all sorts of stuff. So I can't put pictures up. So I haven't lately, there's been so much going on, but I was writing all about it. UrbanEdgeWildlife.org is my site, UrbanEdgeWildlife.org. And in there, I have been historically writing a lot of articles about what I'm seeing. I need to write some more. I have 2 articles I'm working on. Actually, one is with Bill, who isn't here. We're working on an article, and then I'm working on another article for the site. But it doesn't have a lot of exposure. So I don't know. I put it all up on Facebook though, and I have a lot of exposure there and lots of comments.
That sounds good. That might work. What about some of the other social media things? What about these things, like TikTok and things, the younger people? Do you notice, is there any difference between old people and young people in their attitudes on such things?
That's really a hard one. That's a hard one. I can't really say, tell you the truth, because that's one I can't really address, because I see it on both, and because even when talking with them nicely, both, whatever, all ages, they have their dogs off leash, and I have another video of one of their dogs chasing a coyote. The coyote turns around, chases the dog. They were playing with each other, actually. But then I see the coyote's mate. This is what the 2 I'm monitoring. And I'm like, yeah. And I hear the owner yelling for the dog. I mean, it's like, give me a break, and that was a young owner, because I talked to them.
Well, who is yelling at his dog? What is he doing? Trying to call him back or what?
Yeah, he didn't know where his dog was. He had no idea that there was some interaction between between the male coyote, that the two of them, and they were, it was, I hate to say this, but I mean, the coyote was luring him. They were playing with each other, but then the mate showed up. So hard to know what was going on there, but the owner was calling his dog, to come, you could hear him calling him. So the dog did finally go back to his owner. And then I confronted him nicely. I said, I have this video. I want you to see this. This is what happened. You have to keep your dog on a leash. You cannot let him run through this very sensitive habitat. But then next thing I see, he refuses and just letting the dog run through the habitat again and picking up sticks that are the homes of these dusky-footed wood rats, carrying them around. It's like, I don't know what you do about it. They don't care. They don't seem to care. A lot of people don't care. And I mean, it's not everybody, of course, but it's all ages. I see it in all ages.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And it makes me feel much better now that we've had that out. I'm sorry. This is so sad. Yeah. Anyway, who else has something on your minds? Peter Meissen, tell us more about what you are up to.
Sure. I'm semi-retired now, so I've been involved in my work for many decades that I still continue at a slower pace and hopefully doing it with more leverage and impact. I got involved in some work from Buckminster Fuller many decades ago. I'm sure many of you know the name and some of his work. Mm-hmm. And my dad had taken me to hear him speak at the local community college, and he did one of his famous 4-hour tours of the universe, and I had no idea what he said other than it was important. Mm-hmm. And so I finally read the book Critical Path. It's a book that changed my life. The specific chapter on the world game is profound and I think appropriate for Project Save the World.
Okay, now hold on. Because is that Buckminster Fuller's book or some other book? I don't know about the critical. What you call it?
Critical Path was one of his seminal works at the end of his life.
Really? Okay. Uh-huh.
Critical Path is the name of it, and any good engineer or David will understand the concept of critical path. It's the must go pathway to get from where you are to an ultimate end product. And what you try to do is shorten that pathway with good design planning, and I won't get into that too much, but the World Game statement, I'll say it in full. It is a long mission statement from the work. It's how do you make the world work for 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time through spontaneous cooperation without ecological damage or disadvantage to anyone.
Holy smokes! How come I never heard of this before?
Well, I'll tell you, the best thing anybody could do is go to Buckminster Fuller's Wikipedia page and it is enormous. So that's a good start if you're not familiar with Bucky. And the number one strategy out of that on page 206 of Critical Path, the number one answer to that question was to link renewable energy resources around the world. And when I say link, I mean with high voltage AC, high voltage DC transmission. Mm. So a very simple statement when I say link renewables around the world is a very profound impact on several issues. And so you don't need to get into long distance high voltage transmission other than you see those transmission lines along freeways and highways. Those are the freeway for electricity. Electricity moves at the speed of light, so it doesn't flow like we think of water flowing through a pipe. It's just instantly on. So when you flip a switch, you don't wait for the light to go on. It's instantly on. When a power generator is added to a grid, those electrons instantly energize, and you receive it at your house or your business. So the goal, and right now the world is still addicted to fossil fuels. George Bush was correct. We are still addicted to fossil fuels. It's been that way for the last 70 years. There has been some transition, and the last decade has been dramatic, and I'll speak to it. But the goal is to build renewables everywhere where they're abundant: wind, solar, geothermal, hydro, biomass, and ocean energies. There's 4 different ocean energies. The world is blessed with renewable potential far beyond what we could ever use or need. By thousands of times, we receive more solar energy in an hour than we could ever use in a year on the planet. So that's the actual capacity of the input that we have just from solar. And the good news, by the way, is that with new capacity being developed on the planet every year, wind and solar are now winning. We are now building more wind and solar on the planet than any other resource because it's cheaper. The people who are doing it the fastest are the Chinese by multiples of any other country. So while they are still building large coal-fired power plants, they are massively developing wind and solar farms in their country because they are still developing. Our biggest solar farms are in the west and the southwest and the deserts. Wind farms clearly are leading in Texas. If you go across Texas now, there's enormous wind farms across in the ranchers of Texas. But that's not where people live. People live in cities, industry lives in tight communities. So you need transmission to get electricity from where it's produced to where we use it. So that's the grid. So when I say linking, I'm talking about high voltage AC, high voltage DC transmission. If you look at the Earth at Night map from NASA, that's a map that you'll see on the back of news programs. Now you've all seen it. It's a beautiful mosaic of our planet at night with the lights. All of those lights have a transmission grid underneath. So that's how you move electrons, is with these electrical grids. Think of it as the nervous system of your body. The nervous system is an electrical network in your body. If the nerve that connects your left arm is disconnected, your left arm doesn't work, it atrophies. That's still much of Africa. Africa is not connected in many ways to a transmission system or any power generation. So it is still burning wood. Women are still walking for water and wood 5 miles a day just to heat their water and cook their food. So the number one strategy, and this was no small statement from Bucky, he was one of the highest integrity engineers I have ever heard, was again to build renewables around the world where they are abundant. Could be hydro, could be wind, could be solar. Feed that into a transmission network that will go across borders. We have many, many transmission lines across borders. We're hugely connected into Canada. All of Europe is interconnected. Southeast Asia is heavily interconnected now. China elevated its entire population out of poverty in the last 20 years by building power grids and power transmission, power supply and transmission. Everybody in China now has electricity in 20 years. So they figured it out. But they're still the largest polluting country in the world because of their quick development. So the good news is, again, wind and solar are now the fastest growing energy sources on the planet. It requires transmission to get them from where they are. I don't know where you all live, but you can all look at offshore wind in the UK. In the sea of what is it? In the North Sea there. I forget. In Maryland, you're in Northern California. We have there's certainly still small hydro in the Sierra Nevadas. but there's enormous wind and solar coming in from Nevada, and an enormous hydro still up in the Columbia River that you buy. You don't necessarily realize it, but some of your cheapest source of electricity is from hydropower from the Pacific Northwest. Falling water is very cheap. There's no fuel once you have a dam. I'm not saying all dams are perfect, but once you have a dam, falling water is some of the cheapest electricity that could supply. So that was the number one strategy, the benefits. And so this is the real value to this one strategy, is that you get everybody electricity. Right now, you need 2,000 kilowatt hours to get people out of basic poverty. 2,000 kilowatt hours per year. You and I have in the U.S. about 12,000. In Europe and Japan, they get by very well on 6,000. But if you get people up to 2,000 kilowatt hours per capita per year, you get them out of basic poverty. They now have electricity for lighting, for a refrigerator, for food and medicine, for a health clinic. So that's the basic minimum, the bare minimum to get people out of poverty. You can now deliver clean water because you can pump and filter water. So it is a clean water strategy. When you build transmission lines across borders, you're now trading 24/7 in the most fundamental commodity that enables our quality of life. Electricity is the
Well, let me tell you my concern, which is that it looks like to me the current geopolitical mood, let's say, is one of protectionism and nationalism and strengthening borders and making sure that, you make America great again, or you make China great again, or you make Russia great again, but not sharing. And right now, for example, I am aware as a Canadian, I'm actually also an American, but I live in Canada, and I think more like a Canadian now than I do as an American after 40 years here. But I also find, one of the things that we have to think in terms of now as a Canadian is how to protect our national autonomy from being gobbled up by the U.S. because, Trump wants to make us the 51st state. Well, Canadians don't want that. So what are we doing? Well, one of the things to be thinking of is pipelines for our Alberta crude oil from, the tar sands, if you'll excuse the expression. They don't like to be called tar sands, but that's, it's very, very sticky kind of oil. And all of that stuff goes south through pipelines to Louisiana, where, as I understand it, it's refined and then shipped out to other parts of the world. That's how Canada makes some of its money, and that's why Canada's actual global footprint is pretty bad, because we're still exporting a lot of oil and producing a lot of CO2 as a result. But now the argument is, well, we want to hurry up and get these pipelines going east and west, or maybe east or west. It might be a choice between whether to create a pipeline going out to Vancouver, and we could send the oil out to other parts of the world and starve the Americans of oil so that they could, it's a good bargaining if you're trying to do the kind of negotiations that Trump is excelling in, where you try to beat down your opponent in some way or other. Then Canada could make the U.S. uncomfortable because they do depend on the oil. So that's a source of energy that we now are thinking much more in terms of not sharing internationally, but getting control locally. And in fact, even the Alberta people, there are a lot of people, including I think the premier of Alberta, who's the equivalent of a governor, is encouraging separatist movements, because Alberta would like to have control of its own oil and not have to even share it with all of Canada, all of the wealth of that. So then you think in terms of electricity being sent from Ontario to New England. And also a lot of electricity goes from some northern Cree part of Cree lands are up in Quebec. And there's a lot of electricity being generated there and sold into the US and so on. So now you've got people thinking in terms of how to get control, how to even get control, retain more control of our own water. We don't want to share water. We don't want to share electricity. We don't want to share oil. We don't want to, whatever. And I think, I worry that what you're suggesting, which makes perfect sense. I mean, I'm a globalist, I think, in terms of humanity, much more than I do in terms of what nationality I am or where my citizenship is located by happenstance. But, I'm losing the argument. The rest of the world is thinking very differently from me. And how does that, excuse my taking too long to vent my thoughts, but how does that connect with what you're suggesting in terms of global transmission lines taking energy that's being generated now on one side of the world and sending it by direct current to North America, for example?
I'm no fan of what our president is doing in terms of putting up barriers and borders. I think that's exactly the wrong policy, the wrong direction. The more that we trade, the better it is for everybody. So we will have to live through this next 4 years, and I'm not thrilled with again what's going on, because he's creating more enemies than friends on our planet. So that does not mean I stop telling the story, which is the more you cooperate with electricity across borders, the better it is for both parties. Clearly, it is an advantageous relationship between the United States and Canada, because Canada does have excess hydropower in many of its northern provinces that we are thrilled to buy, because it's cheaper to buy it from Canada than it is to produce ourselves. It's replacing some fossil fuel that we used to have in North America. We're shutting down coal-fired power plants and using many more natural gas, which is a CO2 reduction, quite a bit of a CO2 reduction. So it is one of the most advantageous relationships that we have, is this electricity trade across the border, which benefits both. Is it going to survive this current political administration? I don't know. Meta, I'm sorry that this is what the world is going through, because clearly what we're throwing up is boundaries, political boundaries, trade boundaries, and I think exactly opposite. Certainly, anybody who thinks globally says that's an impediment to peace, trade, and cooperation. So that's the. It sort of is a perspective that I think that some Americans have now, is that there's not enough. It's sort of like "Make America Great Again" is another way of saying we need to put our arms around what we have and not share it, because there isn't enough for all. Clearly, on the planet, there is enough for all. If you look at the wind, solar, geothermal potential, if we develop that, there's more than enough for everybody forever. We clearly have the know-how to get people out of poverty. You and I have all done that. We're on a computer that's plugged into a circuit that allows us to have this conversation. The part that I didn't really emphasize, the other benefit, was if you're now producing almost all of your electricity from renewable energy, you can actually make the transition on your transportation sector also to be one that's based on electricity, not on fossil fuels. The whole goal, as well as and as quickly as possible, is to get off a fossil fuel economy. If you follow CO2 growth on the planet. We're ultimately cooking ourselves quickly. And I don't need to get into that. I'm sure most of you know what's going on in that sector. So this is an environmental strategy to get us off of fossil fuels, to get us onto renewables. It's a peace strategy to build trade relationships and interconnections between neighboring countries. Meta, there's not going to be a global grid. There will be many, many regional grids. The grids in the United States, there's a Western grid, an Eastern grid, and a Texas grid. These grids connect into Canada and to Mexico. There is a grid throughout Europe that connects all those EU nations. So that's a regional grid that's now extending across the Mediterranean Sea into Morocco and some of the Middle Eastern countries. So I don't want you to think of it as a global grid in the sense that there's going to be one big DC line all way around the world. There will be many, many regional grids that interconnect with one another as we have ourselves. So we have benefits that move us from fossil fuels to renewables. We have a benefit that gets people out of poverty, gets them clean water for the first time, so they don't have to walk and boil water, because you and I have water coming out of the tap that's clean because we have electricity that can pump and treat and filter water. It actually also puts some downward pressure on population growth, because as people get more advanced as they develop, they don't need the insurance births anymore. We have a replication in the first world of basically two parents, two children. The people in Africa still have large families because that's their social security. If you elevate their quality of life, that family size goes down, and this actually has a way to.
This is your bag. This energy issue obviously is your main concern. And I've
been doing it for a long time, Meta. So I've been around the world telling this story many times.
I'd like for you to say a little bit about the organization that you're with, or how you're plugged into it professionally. Do you spend your day working on this? And if so, what is your job?
We founded the organization, the Global Energy Network Institute. I put the website in there, geni.org. So that's still there, and it's been fairly, I'll call it dormant for several years since COVID. Once COVID came around, there was no oxygen in the room for what we were saying. Obviously, everybody was looking at how do I educate my kids? How do I pay my rent? How do I stay safe? So there was no space in globally for the conversation. So we basically, what I call it, went onto my COVID sabbatical. And I liked it. I got to a certain age where I wanted to enjoy my life a little bit more and not work steadily on this project. So the website.
You were the head of this organization. You founded it, and yes. You ran it, and now you took a break, and now you're back into business. Is that this short version?
Well, back into business in a different way. Nonprofit remains, and the website is still there. It is not as active as it was back then. I then moved into, and this was about 15 years ago, Bucky's other primary a primary project which he had proposed 50 years ago, which was a visualization space. He called it the World Resources Simulation Center. The website there, wrsc.org. From now on, I'm just going to say Sim Center. And he said, basically, we need a place where we can gather to grapple with the hard issues of our day, whether they be global or local, surround ourselves in the understanding of the issue. So we developed a space downtown San Diego that had 12 large visual screens, 8-foot screens all the way around in a 270-degree environment. Think of a mission control room. That's the best visual you can all understand. Everybody's seen the mission control room, many digital screens in a way that everybody that's sitting behind a computer can see what's going on and make smarter decisions quicker. that's really managing in real time what's going on at a space station or a number of satellites around our planet. We did not have a same mission control room for long-term sustainability. So we created that. We developed that essentially a beta version.
Goes there because, if you can do things online, I think most people do things that way by Zoom. Now, I don't ever go anywhere, but it sounds like you'd have to go and sit in the circle of this, surrounded yourself by all these screens to get the benefit from it. Is that right?
We did that for several years in downtown San Diego in that environment, and clearly with COVID, you could not meet anymore, so that wasn't a viable place at that time. Who was our biggest users were the students from universities, both globally and locally, that would come in and do their internships for 20 hours a week, and numbers of research papers and presentations and videos were developed on issues, not just energy anymore, but water, transportation, potholes, housing, inequality. So there are many, many wicked issues that the planet is up against right now. So this was a place where you can bring interested people together and visualize the problems, visualize the solutions, so we can make smarter decisions quicker. That's the mission statement.
How can we connect with you? Because I'm always looking for ways in which Project Save the World has, a space for people to do things that sometimes we can find that different groups have things to share with each other. Can you see a way in which you need to make contacts with other organizations globally that might be any kind of cooperation that might be useful? And by the way, this is a chance for other people to, if any of you, and Brian, I don't know whether Brian is still here because I never can see him, but Brian, if you're here, you're part of the game. Are there any potential connections that can be created among people about energy or about any of the other concerns that are on your mind?
I'll quickly jump in to say what I'm doing now is I spoke about having to be more impactful and have higher leverage to this work. And what we realized is just having it in San Diego downtown wasn't sufficient. What we wanted to do is to see if we could create these visualization spaces, these sim centers, ultimately on university campuses. University campuses where you have smart college students who have the time, some people with gray hair who have a little bit of experience and knowledge and wisdom, so you can put them in the same room. We started with Southern Illinois University in Edwardsville, that campus. There's a Fuller Dome there and a constituency that we had a fabulous, I just put that link into the chat. We had an extraordinary 5 days there where we did the World Game event, which is a one-day event where people can stand on the Dymaxion map and ultimately see the global condition and its inequities in a very visceral way. We did a demo of the Sim Center that I was talking about here with digital screens around the room. There's a play called Buckminster Fuller, The History and Mystery of the Universe. So that was performed, and other things during those 5 days. There's now a sister campus in Carbondale, also in Illinois, where we want to take what we learned there and do it on that campus. The goal, ultimately, Meta, is to, and this is what Bucky's goal was, is to actually take this World Game mission statement. How do you make it, and have it be the curriculum of the university? The curriculum of a university oftentimes is you have a department for engineering, a department for IT, a department for chemistry, and because
I want to get input from other people, because what you're suggesting, you've given a lot of suggestions that people might want to connect to, but there's nobody here except Peter Wadhams, who's connected with the university anymore. And even Peter's retired, so he's I think you don't go every day to your office at Cambridge, I'm sure. So, the question, I don't think anybody here is going to be able to help you with setting up anything connected with the university, but there may be other connections that people are hearing you talk about that they may want to speak to. And if that's so, let's give everybody a chance to do it, because I think you've said pretty much what you're doing. So I want to see what other people have to say about it. Is anybody interested in connecting with any of the work that Peter is doing or proposing to do?
Well, can I jump here in?
Yeah.
And say I admire enormously what Mr. Fuller and everything has done. But with this, what we're coming up against is human weakness. And in particular, you look hearing at a system which is working for the benefit of the human race. But we're also dealing with, for instance, Israel, a state which is deliberately destroying systems that sort of more or less work, that is, used to work, that is systems for eating, drinking, food, everything, deliberately destroying it, and on the basis of absolute malevolence, in order to make it impossible for this sort of thing to work.
Deliberately trying to starve people, let's put it bluntly.
Yeah,
That's what they're trying to do, I think.
Well, it's deliberately starving and, of course, also killing as many as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Why? First of all, why do that? But also, it's affecting the systems by which you're trying to make the planet a better place.
Right.
So I don't know how to get around that. I mean, with the human race being the way it is.
We have a show coming up tomorrow in which we'll have a conversation about that with at least 3 people I know who have interests. One is Meir Amor, who's a former, he was a graduate student here. I was on his dissertation committee, and he taught at Concordia University, taught sociology for a number of years, and has returned to Israel. He's living in Israel, but he's a very peace-oriented person. In fact, he refused to fight when Israel was attacking Lebanon many years ago. He was in the military, and he was supposed to give a pep talk every day to his squadron or something, and he couldn't bring himself to explain why or how or why they should be doing what they were ordered to do. So he quit and he went to jail rather than continue fighting. But then he's lived in Canada a number of years, and he's back, and he will be talking about it from the standpoint of Israelis. And there's another man who will be with us, who's in British Columbia, and that's Paul Meyer, who mostly has worked through the United Nations and then other international departments. He is a former diplomat. He was the ambassador for disarmament for Canada for a while. And he has, of course, concerns about international law and the application of international law in a situation such as what's been going on in the last 2 weeks about the war in the Middle East. And the third person will be a woman whom I've not yet met, but who will be joining us. And she is she's an Iranian. I believe she was born in Iran, but brought to the U.S. when she was a child. But she speaks excellent Farsi and is very knowledgeable about what goes on in Iran. So she will be able to talk about the situation in terms of human rights from the Iranian perspective. The question is there any future solution that looks promising now? And, I wouldn't make any bets at all. We may have a couple of other people join as well, but those are the three people that I'm counting on. So we don't do shows live anymore, so I can't show it to you while it's going on, but we'll make a recording of it and we'll put it up probably by Tuesday. I hope I'll get it up and available by Tuesday and send it out to you. Make sure you're on our mailing list. I don't even know whether whether Peter Meisel is on our mailing list or not, but if not, we should put him there, because we want everybody to have a chance to look at the conversation that we put together about the prospect of peace in the Middle East. Brian, it's good to see your face again. Nice to know you're with us. You have your hand up. Speak.
Yeah, we're dealing with present scarcity, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and that's being brought by witnessing civilization in the death throes of extractionary paroxysm.
Mm-hmm.
The opportunity here is to move our communities beyond fear. Love is letting go of fear. And this is about building tribes of abundance from the bottom up. And that starts with stellar cooperatives. Buckminster Fuller had a huge amount to say about sustainable architecture, renewable energy, and more. We've enjoyed working with the Buckminster Fuller Institute for the better part of a decade, even longer in some cases. And that's a great start. And the stellar future.
Sorry, but when you say we've been working, who's we?
Our climatefoundation.org. It's where we're based. And within the Climate Foundation, we have a nonprofit startup studio that is building the future. And we're working with Rethink X and the Stellar Foundation to identify the key technologies that are going to be needed, starting with solar, wind, and batteries. It's the cheapest electricity in history, and it can be built bottom up, even off the grid. And that, if we design and build for the cloudiest day of winter, we can have that kilowatt that's needed to run your home. And then on a sunny day, we'll have 5 kilowatts times 5 hours. That's 25 kilowatt hours per day that we can use to charge our cars, which costs 10 times, the electric car costs 10 times less per mile to run than a fossil fuel car. And it's a revolution happening. I just checked, and the BYD cars coming in from China to here in Australia are brand new. They're the same price as used, and they cost $20,000 for brand new
BYD cars.
Yeah, those are the latest Chinese vehicles that are going to do a great job of electrifying. So I was looking at some used electric cars, and I looked at this, and it's like a brand new BYD car costs the same as the used cars. So it's really a revolution happening right now, and that means affordable electricity. It means affordable abundance of transportation with electric vehicles, an abundance of food security with precision agriculture, precision fermentation, and now with marine permaculture, precision mariculture, that will provide us with an abundance of food, primarily vegetables, fruits, and fruits of the sea, and protein in the form of precision fermentation. Think tofu plus, that is going to provide people with vegan sources of protein using 70 times less land area than we're using today to feed 10 billion people. And that is going to enable us to feed 10 billion people, rewild most of the farmland in the world, and that's 25% of all farmland, of all land is farmland. So we get to rewild 12% of our planet's land mass and regenerate habitat and food for nature at the same time we're feeding the planet. This is a huge opportunity to lean into the stellar future, and that's why we're doing our Stellar Startup Studios starting right here in Australia.
Mhm.
So our vision for the future is to demonstrate these cooperatives that work, turn cooperatives into communities, and literally build and help open source how to build 1,000 communities, 1,000 points of light around the world that are going to enable people to get off the exponential bandwagon. You know, there's only two groups of people that believe in unlimited exponential growth, and that is economists and the tooth fairy. And so you have to, understand that limits to growth, we have to live on the donut, get people outside the donut hole, which means enough food, enough energy, enough transport, have them live within planetary boundaries, and that means not outside the donut, but on the donut. And this is exactly our vision for a stellar future for humanity. And it's bottom up, grassroots, community by community. I recommend reading the book Stellar by Tony Seba and James Arbib. And, we're looking forward to doing a book club next month with the Healthy Planet Action Coalition on Stellar. And, I'm going to start some weekly calls, I think, on stellar technologies as well.
What does that mean? I got the book. I read most of it. What do you mean weekly process? The weekly processing or something?
No, I'm thinking about doing a weekly office hours on Stellar and building birds of a feather on building Stellar in your community around the world.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's our hope for the future, and we're leaning into it full speed ahead because heaven knows we've got to be the change the planet needs on a planetary timescale of just a few short years.
How much of that needs government funding? How much of it is do you expect private sources to cover?
I think we're going to fundraise for it, and we're going to put some of our own resources into proving out the technology works. But but let's see. There's Amory Lovins, the director and founder of the Rocky Mountain Institute, has said there's a $5 trillion positive net present value to being green. And that means with stellar cooperatives, we're going to have exports from the community in the form of energy, abundant energy, food products, because people need to eat, and ultimately even artificial labor in the form of robotics and all the rest, and artificial intelligence as well. And that means those exports can support the community. And every member of the stellar community will have stellar offtake rights, and that means a share of the abundant electricity, abundant food, and abundant labor that completely changes the equation of extractionary economics of the past 10,000 years. So literally, we're about to reach stellar ignition, in which humanity, for the first time, instead of working all their lives in the production system will work for us and produce that abundant resource that will be part of our new Bill of Rights, which will be the stellar offtake rights that exist for each and every stellar citizen.
Anybody else approve of this game plan? Okay.
Thank you, Peter.
So, well, we offer you a place to do your promotion right here. Every time we have a meeting, you're welcome to come in and make your pitch. I don't know what we can individually contribute to it, but it's good to have a conversation, I think.
Well,
How
what I love about it is this Stellar Vision is open source. It's nonprofit. It's going to move us beyond extraction, which I think is absolutely essential. When I look at what the banana industry did to Central America, all in the name of Chiquita, over the past 150 years, I was mortified that we toppled democratic governments. We disrupted, we built military juntas. The CIA did what regime change all over Central America. This is not new. It's been going on for half a century. I was horrified at the extractionary policies put forward in the past century. And that's where the name Banana Republic came from. I mean, there's a great YouTube on it. I'll try to find it and share it. The point I'd like to make is let's move together beyond extraction. And the best way to do that is open source growth of stellar communities as an alternative. So when people lose their jobs, as they will to AI, they will be able to join a stellar community and rejoin civilization in a new form. It's the phoenix that rises from the ashes of the extractionary systems that we're seeing crumbling and failing right now.
Thank you. And we have a newcomer, a late newcomer. Here we are. They only have 15 minutes for you, Richard. Richard Denton is presumably in Sudbury, Ontario. Is that right, Dr. Denton?
I just got back from out west in Haida Gwaii and picked up a cold bug on the flight home from Calgary to Sudbury, which was a direct flight by WestJet.
Oh, so you have a runny nose? Is that the problem?
Correct.
All right. Well, bless you. We've been having a conversation, as you've been hearing, about energy. I think more than anything else, a newcomer to our group, Peter Meisen, has been here talking about his work with energy, and Brian von Herzen, who's always tends to be invisible, but he has a big presence when he actually does speak, has been talking about this new book by Tony Seba on how the new technologies are going to make life more prosperous and comfortable and avoid the social tragedies that have gone with extractive industries in the past. We'll be living sustainably and quite comfortably, according to him. So that's what you've missed so far. You want to bring us up to date what you've been up to, Richard?
Well, I'm just back from Haida Gwaii and learning about indigenous people. Interestingly, BC doesn't have any treaties out there, so it's all unceded land, but the Haida have made an agreement with the government to co-manage their land, which is actually, I think, a first for indigenous people. So this is very encouraging out on the West Coast. And then I was at a Rotary International convention with 15,000 people.
Oh, yes. I missed that. You told me it was going to happen. You mean it's already come and gone and I wasn't even aware of it?
Correct. So that was just over this week. So I just got back on Thursday night.
Okay, you were in Calgary.
Richard is also a member of the Rotary E-Club for World Peace, which I also am member. So I know that the peace agenda was forefront at this particular Rotary International Conference. And thank you for being there, Richard.
Yeah, it was interesting. I missed actually the last day, but they had a Nobel Peace Prize winner from Iran, and she came out very strongly, not only with what she said, but how she said it, calling the United States a dictatorship 3 times, and as a result got booed, which is not very Rotarian. But other people did cheer her. But again, the convention did end on a controversial note.
Okay, so what was the main theme? Did anybody come up with any new proposals that we haven't already heard about?
Well, some friends and I, we put on a or a pre-conference on global nonviolence, and had the Honorable Douglas Roach speak at that with his new book on hope during Trump. And so it was good to hear Doug offer hope at his age of 96 now. And we also had a young Métis woman who's a Rotary Peace Fellow and Mrs. World Elite. And she is now using her position to help with conflict transformation. So that was also very good.
What kind of example of a conflict is she working on?
Well, primarily between indigenous and non-indigenous people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think again we've come a long way, and in terms of working on the 94 resolutions of the Truth and Reconciliation, I met with Negan Sinclair, the son of Murray Sinclair. He was there and spoke on several occasions. We also listened to a Maori from New Zealand, and similar situations are going on down there.
Like what? What's going on? Is there a conflict with the Maori and other New Zealanders, or what?
Correct. Again, the Maori are exerting their right to have a bigger say in governmental decisions.
Mm-hmm.
In New Zealand.
In New Zealand, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Did you say Hope Douglas Carmichael?
Sorry, Brian?
You said Hope was a book by, or a essay by Douglas Carmichael?
No, Douglas Roach, Roche, the former progressive conservative member of parliament, the former senator, our former disarmament ambassador to the United Nations, author of over 25 books on getting rid of nuclear weapons, the founder of the Middle Power Initiative. Yeah, that one.
Where do we access his essay on hope? Is it a book?
Yes. Just hold on.
Yeah.
For you to get it. I think we probably did a book review of it. We usually do, because Doug comes out with a book about once a year, and we're always glad to get a review of each one of them. And he always makes quite a point of the importance of hope. I'm not sure I agree with him. I don't know why people need hope. I don't depend on hope. When I get my energy, it's from duty. It's a sense of, if I'm supposed to do something, well, I'll try to do it, even if I don't think it's going to work. If I think I'm supposed to do it, I'll try. That is not a typical point of view, and I don't think it's Doug's point of view, that we all need hope in order to have the motivation to do things with spirit. Oh, you're back. Oh, I was a little bit worried about you. You know, my Croatian, my friend in Vukovar. How are you, dear? How are you? I'm glad to see you. You were here a minute, and then you went away.
My computer has been doing rather crazy things.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, we don't have a lot of time left, so let me give you the floor for a moment. Although Richard is looking up for a book that he can hold up. When you find it, hold it up. I don't have a copy around here, so I can't do that.
Yeah, I don't see it right now. So carry on.
It's called Keep Hope Alive, Essays for a War-Free World, September 2023.
Yeah, that's it.
Well,
thanks.
And I think his point is that it's not just hope that you have; it's you have to work for it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I mean, I think during the Second World War, our enemies were Germany, Italy, and Japan, and now they're our bosom friends. And the Soviet Union and China were our allies, and now they're our, quote, enemies. So people do change. And so that to me, that is hope.
Right.
Very good. Okay, let's hear from Vukovar. How are you? Charles David Palmer is our
we're having-
doctor friend there.
Sorry?
Yeah.
We're having a great many problems. As I mentioned, with the computer, with finances, and all kinds of things. There have been elections. They've gone what I say is the wrong way, obviously, to the right.
Oh,
And even further to the right than they were. So as I say, we're having financial problems, we're having computer problems. It's a whole story.
now, when you say you've had an election, you're talking about Croatia in general has had an election?
Croatia has had an election, and there have been local elections as well.
I see. Okay. And it didn't go the way you wanted it to. All right.
Sorry? Yeah,
Didn't go the
it's
way you
very hot here
Mhm.
in the high 30s.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Well, I guess listening to you, every time you show up, I hear reason to be pessimistic, not as hopeful as Doug Roach would be.
I wish, excuse me. I wish we could be optimistic.
Mhm.
We're trying very hard. We're working very hard.
And we should explain to some of the newcomers or anybody who's not been watching before, because every time you bring us up to date on your work, which is always that of doing therapy with people who've been in trauma situations, especially war situations, because there is the ongoing effect that lasts a lifetime, and not just one lifetime, but they even pass it on to their children.
And that's one of our big things right now is the transgenerational transmission of trauma, which is an extremely important point. The other thing we're dealing with is that many countries are throwing out their migrants. So, for example, the UK and a lot of Europe are sending them back to Nigeria, even though the people have been in the UK for, I don't know, 15 years, 20 years. Peter probably knows something about this. These are lots of countries are doing this. We're also dealing with the war resistors and the conscientious objectors and people who are trying to get out of Russia and out of other countries and go into Europe. And of course, the Europeans don't want them. So there's a huge problem in terms of all of that.
What's being done politically about that? Because that to me is that's close to my heart. I have friends in Russia or people who've left, but who can't get papers to go where they want to go. And
there's a lot of that.
I can't make any progress with that. I can't even get people to be on my talk show and discuss it. People who know, and a lot of people who should know better have a pretty reactionary point of view. They say, "Oh, a lot of these people are really spies." Oh my goodness!
That's exactly what we're getting, and they don't. Nobody wants migrants of any sort.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it comes down to. Even if they're from Russia and supposedly, quote unquote, on our side.
Mm-hmm.
There are the people who don't want to go to Ukraine, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
In Nigeria, it's a mess. And there are some very, very good people working for the NGOs in these places. And in fact, it would be great to get them here to talk about this, because I see them every week. I have a group with the Nigerians once a week. I have a couple of groups with the Russians, with the deserters.
Mhm.
And in fact, we may even get an interview with Radio Free Europe, would you believe? That would be nice. We need a lot of publicity. We need to do a lot of work.
Well, can I help you?
And because of this
Listen,
computer thing,
It-
we've
it-
lost our server and we've lost a lot of our documentation.
let me propose something. If you're that closely in touch with Russians, those are the ones that I don't know why, but it's it's just dear to my heart. I really want to do more for those Russian. I call them escapees, the people who really have fled.
I think that's a good word.
Yes. And there a lot of them are stuck in places that they don't want to be, or they can't dare ever go back to Russia. Most of them, because they'd be sent.
Of course not.
Well, tell me if you are in touch with a bunch of them, let's have a talk show about it, shall we?
Fine. I'm more than willing.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, you get
I'm more than willing. And
Send
what
me
I'd
an
really
email.
like to talk about is the transmission of trauma, because that's influencing Gaza and Israel.
Mhm.
Without question. It's influencing here, and it will if nothing is done about it, and nothing is being done about it.
Mhm.
That's my concern, is that here in Canada, our new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, said that we were going to 2%. Now he says we're going to 5% of gross domestic product for the military.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we should be putting this money to addressing the climate and getting rid of wars, which are the cause of mass migrations.
Yeah, and Richard, also, it should be being used to but to address the traumas and to address the transmission of trauma, because the level of trauma among young people here, and I've said this here a couple of times, Meta, the level of trauma here among young people is higher than it was in the 90s. So this transmission is a real issue. And by the way, in case you didn't realize it, this is 30 years since the end of the war here.
Wow. Has it been that long?
It's been that long. So
Well, that. I should know that. I have that came, that I took in who have been here as dear friends, and they were escaping from Sarajevo, and so yes, I guess they've been here for 30 years.
And by the way, this is 30 years since Srebrenica, since the Srebrenica massacre.
Yeah.
So that will be commemorated on the 15th of July.
Mhm.
So
Well, how many people in Vukovar are going to be interested in making an observation?
very few, because everybody's scared.
Yeah.
Everybody's scared.
Mhm.
And that's one of the
I don't like you to have be the last person on this show, because it's 4:00 now, and I like to try to think of something upbeat to end with, but
I'm sorry about it.
Charles, every time I talk to you, you've got so many problems and I can't help you with, and I don't know what to do. So
Well, maybe to talk about our situation on one of your shows would be good publicity and might help us, because we might get some people who could assist and who would want to assist.
All right, it's a deal. You put together a list of people and send me an email, and we'll work on it. We can do it within the next 2 weeks, really, I think.
Okay.
Any last call for speakers? Okay.
I think that the future is bright. It's simply not broadly distributed yet. And let's all work together towards a stellar future for humanity.
That's a good ending, Brian. Thank you. I wanted an upbeat ending, and you supplied one.
Amen, Brian.
All right. See you in a month, and everybody behave yourselves now. It's been fun. Take care.
Good night.
Bye.
Sleep well, everybody.